love, give me love like never before. And I'll wait for you, my darling, that's for sure.
Hey everyone, it's Wendy here with Raise the Vibe Initiative, and I am once again just overjoyed. I've got a very special guest with me today, Dr. and Reverend Paul Luftenegger. He's many things, but he's a multi-award winning international singer and songwriter. And he's been inspiring people across the globe with some of his incredibly conscious music. He is just such an inspiring person, and we're really going to dig into kind of some of his music today, what you're working on, some of your albums that are recent. I like to call him, the musical alchemist to a certain degree, right? And just bringing out so much high vibrational, beautiful code through his language, which is really heart-based and just comes through so strongly in his music. So, Paul, thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. And we'd love to welcome you today. Yeah, so, Paul, maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit and tell some of the viewers a little bit about who you are and what you've been working on as of recent.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Wendy. I really, I feel like this is so timely to begin really 2023. I haven't really done that much. I think I've had a couple of interviews or shares, but I've been pretty picky about sort of how I wanted to start this year. And I feel so aligned with what you're doing. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And to anyone joining in on this, if it's watching it live when it first airs or coming even in on a replay, there's perfect divine timing, and it doesn't matter when you come in and watch this. So it could even be from years from now. So this is a timeless time capsule. So I really want to sort of speak to that, and we're shifting timelines here. So we need to really understand where we're at, I think. In 2023, I think I want to just speak to that first, is that this is a very important year. I think everybody knows it. I know anybody watching this has been guided sort of from their heart to be here. So I really want to honor you for showing up to this in 2023 or wherever you're coming in from the space of 2023. And the reason why I say this is it's the year of the water rabbit. And it's a very special time because we're going to be, this time won't happen for another 60 some odd years. So what we do right now is we're planting seeds. So as we plant these seeds right now, we're going to see germination happen like never before from the power that we're yielding from within our heart and our soul in this timeline. So if you're watching this in the future, the energy of 2023 will be in this, so it doesn't matter. But I do want to speak to the people that are watching this in 2023 to really honor where you're at. So just to answer your question about who I am and how I managed to meet you and get here, it's all a mystery in so many ways. But at the same time, I've been, like anyone watching this, I think, sort of aware of this world being a very different world than where I'm from. I knew this as a child. I didn't understand it until probably 2011, but I knew it as a child. And I've always been with God. I use that word, so I think it's important for me to say it out loud, but I'm a child of God, and I come from God, and I will return to God when I'm done this incarnation. So I'm here to support really life, becoming the highest self and manifest. And I can feel the energy and blood flowing to me now, just saying that, because it is so renewing to remind yourself and to really understand where you come from. So I really am someone to help people in being a spiritual guide. And I think an ascension guide would be the term that I use. And in 2011, my father sadly took his own life. And I'm just going to speak to this briefly, but basically that is where God asked me to finally sort of pursue what and who I am was in March of 2011. And the long story short of this is I wasn't doing music at all. I had sort of had this really rich childhood in music, but I had sort of given up on it. It just wasn't, it just didn't feel the right way forward for a long time. And then when my father died, God asked me to sing songs for God. And I did. I answered the call and I sort of put on brakes and tried to resist. And it was a joke, really. I sat down and like saw music just started flooding through me with God. And it was so interesting because it was during a life review with God that all of this happened. And I've been in a deep life review for pretty much the last 12 years. And what that means is that I know that I'm responsible for every single thing that I do. And that means that on the other side, when I leave this body, I know that I will look at every single thing I've done, which we all have to do, by the way, and be responsible for it. And we're living in a time where we are basically having a life review process while we're incarnated. That's really the truth in all of this. And for me, that's something that's very important because what it means is that we're no longer capable of making excuses for horrendousness. So, and we're living in a lot of horrendousness here. So here's the thing. Once you're sort of aware of it, I'm a psychic, a medium, and I'm very aware that the veil is pretty much non-existent. And I think that we're sort of starting to understand the operating system has changed. And I think that there's been a lot of people trying to resist and trying to control this narrative. It's already done.
I
So
agree.
love has already won.
I agree.
We have already won. Love has already made that impact, and it's a non-negotiable. So I say this because it's important for you to understand it in your heart, your soul, your spirit. And I think from that perspective, you draw a line in the sand and you cross over. And it's just that simple. And we have to remember how much power we yield right now. We're very powerful. And I say this with humility because I'm someone that felt very powerless in my life. But I recognize the power that we have is very powerful. And it's even more powerful when we unite with like minded soul family around the world. So I think just to start off, I really wanted to just sort of set the tone of, I think, the power of the truth in what I'm sort of doing and where I'm at. And I'm excited about sort of having a moment with you to really amplify, I think, supporting life. We're with incredible people on this planet.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow, Paul, that you've got so much gold in what you've just said. I've got a quick question for you, and this is something that I have been feeling coming online probably since about December or so, is that I definitely sort of, I don't know if it was the preliminary kind of the start of these new energies. Like I do feel like it came in not too long ago. And then I say that now I feel a very interesting like timeline shift, and I know some people have some qualms about the word timeline, but what I mean by that is that there are two very distinct realities that I can see happening where prior to this energy shift I felt as though everything was still very much dualistic in nature, where now I don't feel that at all. In fact, I just feel that there's two energies and they're existing in parallel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think you're speaking to something that's very interesting to me because I think the thing is you're told so many things
Yeah.
that it's really, you can get a little bit of whiplash in the new age world, let's call it. But I think really simplistically, I like to look at things in dimension. It really helps me sort of to map out. So I like to begin by saying that there's 8 billion dimensions because there's 8 billion human beings pretty much right now. And each person has its own dimension. So that's I like to just sort of start with that. But then further to that, I like to remind everyone that when we're sort of in a space of divine love, we're in a dimension as well, collectively. So I think that the way that I sort of see the map of the world right now is that there are really two worlds going on, and it's the fear base, and I mean it's the love base. And I like to look at gas pedals. So when you drive a car and if you want to gain momentum, you have to press gas, right? So I like to look at love like that. If you want to really amplify and increase your vibration, you have to press your gas pedal for love. If you're going to press the, and quite frankly, halt the brake on fear. So stop the fear, press the love down. And when you do this, when you make a conscious choice to do that, and all it means is that you basically are going to experience a totally different thing happen where you basically start to experience whatever you're putting down the pedal to, you'll experience more of that. So if you're putting down love, you're going to find love in the world. What you're seeking is going to find you. If you're going to put out fear, though, you're going to find that. And those two timelines basically are going to self-sustain themselves. So the fear for me is going to slowly dissolve
Mhm,
on
mhm.
the planet, and the love will just naturally take over. So sort of like the world splitting.
Yes.
And I think it's been happening for a long time. I don't think this is new, but I think we're at the we reached the tipping point. And what you're going to start to see is the acceleration of love base really start to push forward now. So just to be a conscious creator and put your love pedal down as much as you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm curious as you're speaking on that, many people have said, and I don't even like really the new age term because I
Yeah, I
feel
know. Fair
that's
enough.
often, misconstrued because really I think what this is us just coming back into our truth. It's like truth frequency, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
like and it's something that I play with too because I'm sort of like I feel it, right? I have an idea about it, but I don't really know what it looks like. Now, in several and I know you're reverend and you do have a lot of knowledge in several of these areas. But when we talk about and ascension is not a something that is new age or a new idea. I mean, this is something that's been written about through the course of many ages, and I believe this planet has probably had one or two even in the course of its own history. So
Yep.
it's not something new. But when we look at what that actually is, some people will say that there's a split happening and that there's going to be actually like two sort of distinct planets that are going to be existing at the same time. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, here, this is where the quantum, so it's really interesting. To be quite honest, there's so much mystery. Okay, so I make no claim to know everything. And I think if you have somebody out there in the world telling you they know everything, I would actually say probably don't spend time with them because I think no one knows everything. And I think what we're here to experience is the mystery. And I think it's a great truth to understand that there's a lot of vulnerability in it. So I think in my heart, what I feel, and my heart is my great discerner, okay? Like, I think we need to, first of all, recognize the heart is telepathic, okay? So I think the core, it's reason why it's listed as cœur in French, it's the core. We feel it in our heart. But our body is so much bigger than just our physical body, and that's the energy side of us. So I think, to speak to the timeline and like I think all of the new age things, there's confusion on all of it. But I think that if you can just become a discerner from your heart, so the way that I like to sort of remind people whenever I'm working with them is that sort of we're born in our heart as children for the first 7 years of our life. And then what happens is the world starts to tell us what we are, and then we start to put that into our program. So the subconscious mind starts to form really powerful sort of programming, right? So I think what happens is there comes a time where you admit that you've been programmed, and then once you recognize that that's someone else's stuff, not yours, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go from your head to your heart again. So back to when you were a child, and you have to do a reboot. We know this. So once you do the reboot on your heart, it means you're now responsible. But when you start to do meditation and prayer and get really going within space happens, the sacred secret garden. And then I think what happens is that your heart realigns with your cosmic mind to connect with the galactic. So this is where source really can have a channel with you properly to be a receiver and a giver of that channel. So once that opens up, you're good, but you have to make sure that you do the maintenance on the system. So that's just cleaning and clearing, transcending is a good word. I like that word. So I think just in these timelines, what is going to be really determining how you experience is what you're doing on the inside and that sacred technology. And every sage and saint has talked about this for thousands of years that this time was coming. we're here, right? So that's where I think that you have to learn, to meditate like a Buddhist. You have to learn how to pray like a Christian. You have to understand the different religions to understand people are really saying the same thing in all of them. It's not to divide, it's to actually have different experiences with the way to sort of move the energy. And I think that that's sort of where we're at. And it's an incredible opportunity to be in it. So I think dimensions are going to start to become really understood by the way you vibrate. And that world splitting, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I feel like that's a possibility though.
Mhm.
And then there's the other part of it too. And I mean, I know that we're not alone. There's galactic life that's streaming around us. And I read the other day that some silly Christian person had said how they're evil, and like I laugh. Like I'm from the future. I'm one of them. Like, and I can guarantee you, I am not evil. So I think that we need to really stop with the thinking that, you know, the space of forever, infinity belongs to just us. That's so egoic and so human. Like no. Actually it is God is so undefinable that is, that without a name, and the divinity of that is what we are really starting to experience. And that includes so many beings that are not here,
Mhm.
physically here.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just letting it sink in a little bit. Okay. It's good code, Paul. Uh,
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that okay, so Paul is extending some beautiful code and language through his music. I did actually entitle this particular show in the 528 hertz
Yeah.
frequency, which is the miracle
Amazing.
tone. And I would say that that very much describes you, Paul, and likely probably a lot of the code that you're putting out in your music. And you also talk about how music affects us. And you have mentioned to me prior about how it affects the DNA, the RNA. Can you explain a little bit to me about, and to all of us, about what
Yeah.
you mean by that, and how you sort of devise your music, and what it does to help us with those types of things?
Yeah, so here's the thing. How shall I explain this the best? So, music, let me start with this. What is music? I think we need to start with what is music. And music has been so abused. Okay. So, I need to speak to the fact that we need to understand what music is. Music is from the heart and the soul of a human being that is a spiritual being. So, when music is created, especially if it's conscious, so if it's created with intention, it's going to have a frequency and a very powerful presence. I like to look at it as sort of like an infinite battery, always charged, fully ready to be plugged into, just like electricity. So and you can't see it, right? Music's sort of one of those things that's that technology, just like electricity. You can't see it, but it's there. And for music, you have to almost seek it. But I think that we also need to recognize that the music industry has been so controlled and manipulated by corporations and by the intention to make money. So there's some nefariousness in that, okay? So we need to look at like what is music really is. It's basically a vibration from the inside of oneself that can go to the inside of another human being, and there's no other sacred space as holy as that. So I really like to speak to that music, with especially conscious music, is really very much a part of two souls energetically, emotionally, intelligently communicating without having to really have language. It's an emotional communication. So when we recognize that, I would never want to be on the inside of someone and invoke fear ever. I'm not interested in that at all. So I understand as a conscious musician that I am doing something that I'm responsible for to enter another human's awareness. So everything that I have done has been with great intention with God, for me to simply support life with love, peace, joy, happiness, prosperity, and wellness. So I think with that intention, I also put it out to the world starting in 2011, and people with that vibration started to pay for my music. So their energy's in it too. So that's the thing. It's a collective pot, cauldron, if you will, good word, or a container, maybe it's a good word, of a lot of people that were involved with it that are peace, love, joy, happiness, prosperity, that support life, loving each other in unity. So music has not been used that way very often, but that is what I did. And I really know that, the thing that I really want to speak to is that God guided this in a way where I know I couldn't do this myself. I didn't really have an understanding of this. So I would just open my heart to God, and God would come through me as a vessel. And I made it happen somehow. I don't know how. I don't even know how to play some of the first songs that I wrote. Like, that's really the truth. But I say this because they existed. And now that they're they're there to support you in your heart and your soul and your sacred technology. And when I perform or when I sing live music, what happens on the stage is that people have miracles happen where they can tap into God. So I'm very much like a piano tuner to help people get back into tune with their instrument to basically pierce through the veil to reach God. And
Wow.
it's really that simple. And it's sort of, I mean, I say this with humility. I'm a servant for really the heart and the soul of human beings, for God.
Well, I certainly, I think as we're coming together as soul family, I find that, yeah, sort of where once we open up that connection back to, I say Mother, Father, God, you
Yeah,
say God, source, whatever it is, that energy, we really do become a vessel then to, just being what we're, is being called through us from our
exactly.
highest aspect, right?
Yep.
Well, I will say your music is so beautiful. When I listen to you, I just, oh, it's just, you are much, and I don't want to say that anybody is not talented, but you are just as much or far more talented than anybody I've heard on the radio. You've got a real gift, and it's really beautiful. Um, so yeah, so did we really speak on the DNA then and the
Well,
RNA?
let me just, yeah, no, let me just open that up. And thank you for coming back to it. So the DNA. So here's the thing. So the DNA to me is the Holy Grail. And I think that it's been very much, I think it needs to be said that there seems to be a lot of dominating forces trying to manipulate something that is the Holy Grail. Now, if that's happened for you, that's okay. There's, wherever you are in this journey, you're good. But the thing that you must recognize, I think, in these times that we're living is that it is yours. It is not for sale. It is not up for someone else to choose what happens to it. It is your choice. You have free will. So I'm here to remind you of your free will, no matter what you've done or where you're at in this journey. And the DNA is a huge part of it because it is literally what is our life force energy, and it can code our bodies and our energies and our mind, our heart, our soul, and our spirit, and our sacred technology. So my music really, and it's so interesting when I started having these sort of, I would call them downloads. I used to sort of cringe at saying that, but that's really what they are. And when they would come to me, um, I had to sort of I used to not be able to talk about this because I was raised so Catholic, but I had to sort of unprogram myself to what was sort of indoctrinated into me, the dogma and all that crap. So I've cleaned myself up enough to be able to understand it. And I am a psychic and a medium, so I've had this happening all my life. I just didn't know how to put it all together. So the DNA is very much a frequency based. And that double helix is a really big thing. And I studied physiology, anatomy, and pathology, not intentionally, but I think it's interesting that that was part of my journey because I would never have chosen that. So I studied that in college for 2 years, and I loved learning about the miraculousness of the body. And the DNA is very interesting because it really is, the more I have sort of been with God and also studied science, I recognize that it's so weird that they're trying to dominate this thing called DNA right now. And I think that I actually believe that more your choice is more powerful than anything having any physical thing done to you. Your choice is the most important thing. And when you claim it back that it is yours. And you are protected in that as well. So I think that it's very important to recognize that there seems to be a very dominating um, third party sort of intention for the DNA. And I feel like it's time to actually say no, thank you, no way, Jose, literally. And if it doesn't resonate with you, to really take that back. And I think that music is a really good way for you to connect your spirit with your source energy that really vibrates around inside of you. And you can sort of bathe your DNA in the frequencies of yourself again. And I suggest you do that. And I think we need to do more of it right now. And I think the music really that is supporting and nurturing with positive affirmations is a great way to help you sort of move that energy within your DNA structure. And it holds the frequencies of light. So the diamond light DNA, I don't know if you've heard the term used, but that is, I'm a diamond light with my DNA. And I would suggest everybody remember that we're a carbon-based environment, so that we must remember if you burn anything, it goes back to carbon. So we're made of this, but it can hold light like a diamond, which is what we do. We hold a lot of light with Creator. And that is what the DNA really does. So to think, even to do a meditation to clean your body with the diamond light DNA, with the intention of really understanding that you are like a diamond.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to try that in the sauna tomorrow.
Yeah, do.
Yeah, I like that. Good. Um, so so on that, yes, your last albums, Paul has 8 beautiful albums. The last two that he is sort of focusing on right now, I believe, is the Diamond Light album, right? And the Love Expanding album. Are
Yep.
those
I'll just actually just put this up. So this is actually the Diamond Light album that I made, and this was actually the first album I did with my producer. It's actually my third album, but this was a really big one. And the reason why I chose, just to show you that structure, it's sacred geometry. If you look at a dollar sign, it's not complete, but this is what happens for us for your body to be built. You have two cells. And you have to have two streams of light pretty much, one from your mother, one from your father, pretty much, regardless of whether or not you have a male and a female as parents, it doesn't matter, but this is the sacred technology that has to happen. And
right,
I think the thing that you have to begin with the two cells that built you, and when you meditate out from that, your life, your body became the temple for your soul.
right,
So I think that what this album speaks to, and it's one of the reasons why I feel like they were sharing with me today, that this is actually the one that anybody that is interested in sort of really vibrating their DNA powerfully, this is the one that I would suggest listening to. And when you listen to music, I even want to add, you can put on earphone, like earmuffs, which, you know, if that's better for you, isolating sound, or just earbuds. But when you really listen to this album, I suggest you do it as a meditative state. So you actually sort of are not being distracted, and you can really let the music take you within yourself so that you can feel and honor your inner space with it.
right.
And that's sort of not how most people listen to music. It's not so much for the car when you begin this. It's more for you to really take an hour to be with yourself within yourself.
Say that the best time generally would probably be right when you wake up in the morning or before you're
Yeah,
going to bed, right?
yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's really no wrong time, but I think the morning energy is very powerful because it's that renewing energy. Yeah.
Well, I would really like a copy of that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll get you one. That's
that would
easy.
be amazing. I
Yeah.
would love that. Yeah, so for all of you folks out there that would like to learn more about what Paul is doing, I'll ensure that I leave all your links below so that everybody can have an opportunity to go in, check those albums out. Now, you have so many interesting stories too, because I kind of, when we had initially spoke, like you have traveled the world, you've met some pretty incredible people in your journey. And do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Where do I even begin? So, okay. The first sort of the first thing that really happened that was pretty wild was essentially Louise Hay came into my life. And it didn't happen in a way where, I mean, Louise Hay, if you know her, maybe some people don't know her. It's possible they don't, but she sold 70 million copies of a book called You Can Heal Your Life, which was a pretty big deal for little me when I first started this. And through the course of, I didn't know who she was. I had no idea who she was when you know, in probably around 2013, I became aware of her. 2014, and actually, it was 2012. I remember. I'm going.
That
See, this is
magical year.
20. Yeah, so it was 2012, and I was in Boston when I learned about her. I remember exactly where it was. So, anyways, what's interesting about her is because she had a publishing company that published so many people that are sort of, I would say, leaders in reminding us of who we are. So, a good way to say it. Um, I met Anita Morjani sort of after that, and Anita Morjani is published with her book "Dying to Be Me" under Louise Hay's sort of umbrella, and she published many people like Wayne Dyer, Ian Van Zant, on and on and on. But Louise was the sort of mothership of printing in the New Age sort of arena. And if you went into self-help sort of bookstore, you'd see Hay House Publishing, and that's her. And she also wrote many different books about how to heal your life. And when you heal yourself, because we have all been so indoctrinated and programmed and probed and used and abused in many ways, when you clean this up and start owning, you know, that your thoughts have power, especially in the quantum field, and we need to remember that our thoughts are powerful. They create our life. So to be mindful that you can always change your thought, and that's her simple. And I used to sort of challenge that when I first started this, but it's so true. If you change the way you think, you change your life. And if you change what was taught to you by the way that you change your thinking, the way you think and the way you act changes. And I mean, I'm a great example. I used to be so mixed up and messed up about even being a musician. I used to be so scared of the stage that I wouldn't do it. So I had to face a lot of fears and like these programs of not being good enough, not being smart enough. And I think the thing that I just want to speak to is in these stories that have happened in my life is because I faced my fears because I am a scared person. I'm not as much anymore, but I really was. And I had to meet these people that were so big and, important, and I realized that we're all the same. We're all important. And
People,
the more I do this, the more I understand that we're all doing the best we can. We've all been damaged from so many harmful people. And I think it gives us this huge bandwidth of contrast to help people. So it's addictive. So I've met, just to answer your story, I've shared stages. My music was used for Louise Hay's life on her 90th birthday. She also transitioned to all of my music, which is crazy to me. Um,
wow.
she's also probably my loudest and most clairaudient voice that I have, actually, for
Wow.
real. Yeah, and I mean that's why I have a wild story about her. I haven't shared it publicly. I will one day. Um, and I was just with the Dalai Lama in his home with a group of people, leaders helping the world. I've shared the stage with Anita Morjani, on and on and on. I sang for Pope John Paul when I was 15 in Rome, which is crazy when I think about that. Um, but I mean, this is the thing that we all have these unique sort of lives. No matter what it is that you're doing, your life is exactly as it's meant to be. And this is like nobody else can do what you came here to do. And it took me a long time to sort of, I think, understand it. But we're at that time, I think, where we're all starting to get it. And it's exciting. And when we bring our powers together, you are an amazing person that's traveled the world. And I met you, you're Canadian, I'm Canadian. I had no idea you existed, but our hearts brought us together. And this is what starts to happen. So Louise Hay's heart came to me because of my heart. And all these people, whether you're famous or not, but all these people come to us because of our heart when we share it. And that's our soul family. And it's exciting because I think just the more you realize there's these little pods and we're all kind of interconnected. What happens when we really connect the bigger pod, which is the world? And I think that's kind of where we're going. All these cells are now coming together with these pods. And then when we bring it all together, well, I think we have a
Beautiful.
lot of power.
So beautiful. Like I say, we're all these beautiful sparks of this,
Yeah.
divine plan, and it is exciting. It really is. And on Louise Hayes, I do have to say, I still have her book right beside in my office. I use it often with my clients
Yeah.
still if I'm coaching, right, for the affirmations that she had, and it changed my life. I think I've read it about 100 times.
Yeah, I know.
If you do have access to her, you just tell her how much I love her and loved her work. And I
She
still
hears
feel
you.
like she's, she's, I can feel the energy, coming through. But I did just want to reference again her amazing work while she was here.
I actually would like to just speak and amplify a little bit more too with her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing, we're all at a time where we need to heal ourselves. When we are healed, the world heals, right?
Yeah.
So, and she was so ahead of her time. And what I love about her work,
Yeah.
especially, is because it started, she was the first, she also became famous during a pandemic, an epidemic pandemic.
Really?
And so it was with the AIDS virus. Yeah. And how she became famous was actually administering care and compassion to HIV patients and AIDS patients in LA. And that's how she became really famous, actually. So she did these things called hay rides, where she would bring people together and treat them humanely and give them hope for being able to heal themselves. And there's an amazing documentary. I think it's called Yellow Roses, and you can watch it if you just YouTube it. But it's really good, and it shows what she used to do in these healing circles. And I think what's really cool about this, the time that we're living in after this pandemic stuff, I think she was showing us the way through it and bringing people together to heal together. And I think that's what's going to happen after this insane last 3 years is we're starting to unite. We don't need to be afraid of each other. It's us that has to work together to help this world be one. So I love how, and I think it starts by loving yourself. Like you teach obviously and coach through that book because it's such a powerful, almost like a system in how to like a process in how to actually do that work.
Yeah, that and programming and it was so interesting. Also too, when you go through that and see the link in terms of how certain health issues will manifest themselves. And when you go into that, you go, wow, that was bang on.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I feel very grateful to be living in a very healthy body. So
Yes.
yes, thank you to Miss Louise Hayes. Wow, Paul, I feel just so super blessed that I get to see you today and I get to share you out in your beautiful code with the world. Is there anything else? Well, actually, I know there is one more thing. You are offering coaching. Are you doing coaching now?
Yeah, so here's the thing. So I am an ascension guide. So I've done sort of three things. I've worked with mediumship. I've also done a little bit of psychic. I don't really like to predict people's futures. I'm not a fan of that for me. It just doesn't resonate for me. I will help someone through mediumship if there's a message, because that's actually not about me. It's about a medium message for someone. So there can be some psychic things that come through that way. I'm much more comfortable with that. So I will do that. I also do spiritual coaching, which is really a part of Ascension. And Ascension is just being your highest self and manifest and being responsible and really reaching and stretching out with your highest self. So I do offer spiritual coaching for that. And I do Ascension readings as well.
Okay. So if people were wanting to get in touch with you, Paul, in respect to that, and again, I'll be leaving information below, but how would our
Just an email. You can just email me at info@paulluftenegger.com and you can just put that in there. But just info@paulluftenegger.com and just in the subject line, just put what you're looking for.
okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And now for 2023, I guess a good place to leave this. What are you working on? What can we expect from Dr. Paul?
Yeah, so I've been really kind of really searching, I think, and letting sort of whatever's meant to come through right now. But I've started basically an international light workers gathering. And I really feel one of the things that I really haven't really enjoyed or felt that there's not enough oomph in is that I really love the term light worker. I've sort of embraced it much more powerfully this year. I feel like we need to sort of really harness that. We're light workers, which means that we create. But one of the things that I don't like is it's become where it's just talk. Talk doesn't change anything. Talk doesn't manifest things well. It's just energy without focus. So I've created this lightworker gathering, and I'm going to meet with basically lightworkers all around the world once a month at the end of each month. So January, February, March, and around the year we go. So I can give you a link for that, but that's something, and it's free. I'm not interested. There's no charge for it. I just want people. I want to hold a space for people to get together with that vibration. And my goal really is to create from countries all around the world and putting some things in action so they manifest to help humanity.
So
So that's my plan.
will that be an online thing, or is that going
Yeah,
to
so
be?
it's online. Yes, so it's online. So we do a 2 hour. I've just had one because we just had one in January, but I'm working with my friend Gita, who's a children's author in Denmark. So she's running the European side of things, and I'm doing the North American side of things. And I feel like we're going to start to anchor some other people that will help us sort of facilitate this.
Hmm.
But I feel it's going to be a powerful group. It already is. And I think just with so many people that I know with my music, it seems natural just to hold space for people to come together.
Oh, well, if I can be of any assistance, please
Yeah,
let
that's
me know.
great. I will. Thank
Um, of course, yeah. Well, Paul, again, thank you so much. I hope that I can maybe touch base with you, maybe in a couple months and have you back on and we can just sort of do a check-in, see what you're up to.
you.
And I thank you so much for being here today. It's so good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And the other thing before we go, I want to just mention one more thing is you can go to my YouTube. And
Oh,
if you go to my YouTube, you can listen to my music there. And
okay.
also Spotify. So I'll put those links in. I just wanted to share just because it's an easy way for people to access it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. You know what? I didn't even realize that you'd had that. So that's great. And you will give me the links and I will share that
I'll do
out
that.
as well with everybody. And I think I'm going to be listening to some of Dr. Paul today while I'm eating our family dinner.
Oh,
All
that's
right, darling.
okay.
Again, brother,
Thank
thank you so
you
much.
so much.
Soon.
Okay.
Take care. Bye. Yeah.
Okay.